Hello, 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 my collectors, my loves, my angels. How are you? How are you? How are you? Happy birthday to those of you celebrating a birthday today. Congratulations for those of you celebrating something special in your lives. And good well wishes for those of you feeling a little under the weather, feeling a little down, feeling a little blue. So we're not in my office right now, okay? We're just in like a little small section in my den. But I was sitting here, right, and I'm just chilling out my little ones. So if you hear a little noise, just kind of excuse it. Bear with it, though, okay? Because it's not my office hours. But it's like I had a download. I started channeling something, and I just kept hearing, like, in my head, why? Just like, why? And then it dawned on me, I said, you know what? Why? That's a good question. Because I know that it's a lot of women that ask that question, right? And so I said, well, let me go on and pull up my phone. Let me just go ahead and drop a video, for my collective, right? So what I want to say, I want to talk to you about right now is exactly that. That question that I feel like many people ask, and it's usually after some form of betrayal or some form of disappointment, or either some secret, finally comes to light. You ask, why lie, right? And the thing about it is, your first question isn't even not, did they love me? Or will they come back? The first question is not a lot of times not even, are they sorry? It's usually, why lie? And I've asked that question. I have, Why tell someone that you want a commitment when you don't? Why tell someone that you're ready for a relationship when you're not? And why say you want a family if you're not willing to show up and be one? You even ask, why pursue someone, chase them, convince them, reassure them, only to turn around and do the exact opposite of everything that you promised? For many people, I think that question stays with them longer than the whole relationship did, honestly. They should last 3 months, but for years you ask that same damn question, right? You ask it because what hurt isn't always the ending of the relationship. Sometimes it's just realizing that the ending could have happened much sooner if they just would have been honest from the get-go. And I think that's what many people struggle with. They're not grieving what happened. They're grieving the time. You grieve the months, the years, the emotions that you invested in the person, the energy. You even grieve sometimes, I feel, the opportunities that you could have pursued if you had only known the truth from the very beginning. Because let's be honest, most people, they can handle the truth. Yeah, it may sting and it may hurt. It may even break your heart. But eventually, you heal, What becomes the hardest part to heal is when you discover that your reality was never real to begin with. It's knowing that that person standing in front of you, looking in your face, knew something that you didn't know. Knowing that they had information that would have changed your decision had you known, and they kept it from you. See, that's where the trust gets shattered. I think many people have said these words before. If you didn't want me, why didn't you just say that? If you weren't ready, why didn't you just say that? If you wanted someone else, why didn't you just say that? If you knew you couldn't give me what the hell I needed, why didn't you just leave me the hell alone? And to be honest, collective, these are all fair questions. Because honesty gives you people freedom, right? Freedom to choose, freedom to decide if you want to get into this or not. It's the lies that keep people trapped. A truthful person may disappoint you, but a dishonest person, they waste your time. And it's a difference. Whoa, it's a big difference. You see, someone can sit across from you and say, I care about you, but I'm not ready. Yeah, that might hurt, but at least you now have the information necessary to decide what happens next, right? You can respect that. But when somebody says, I'm ready, when someone says, you're the one, when someone says, I want forever, and their actions reveal otherwise, you see, that creates confusion. Now you're trying to solve a puzzle that never should have even existed. And now you're wondering which version was real. Was it the words or is it the actions? Was it the promises or is it the behavior? And many people spend years trying to answer that question. Because the truth is, sometimes people lie because they want the benefits without the responsibility. They want the companionship, they want the affection, they want the validation, they want your loyalty, they want your support, they just want the access to you. But they don't want the accountability that comes with those things, right? They want the harvest without planting the seeds. They want the reward without the work. And unfortunately, there are people who would keep taking as long as someone's willing to give it. And it's not because they necessarily hate the person. And I don't think it's because they always were plotting the entire time. Because sometimes they weren't plotting the whole time, you know. Sometimes it's simply because they're just selfish as hell. And selfishness can cause just as much damage as cruelty. You see, I always feel like a selfish person doesn't always ask, is this right? They ask, what can I get away with? And that's a dangerous mind collector. Another reason people lie, I feel, is because they don't want consequences. And let's talk about that. Imagine telling someone the truth, right? The truth might mean that they're going to leave you. The truth might mean that they might stop talking to you. The truth might mean that they stop giving you attention. The truth might mean that they're going to move on. And some people are so afraid of losing access that they choose deception instead of choosing the truth. Not because they don't know the truth, but because they don't like the consequences that are attached to telling the truth. So what do? They delay. They stall. They tell a bunch of half-truths. They make a bunch of promises that they know they're not going to keep because they're trying to buy time, create hope within you. Not that the hope is going to be real, because it's not going to be real. And that's where people become frustrated, collective. I feel like that's where you become frustrated, because you realize that someone was not building a future with you all that time. They were just buying time. And those are two completely different things. A person building the future creates clarity. A person buying time creates confusion. Pay attention to that. Clarity and confusion are rarely roommates within the same relationship. Another thing I've noticed is that some people lie because they want to see themselves as good people. Nobody wants to wake up and think of themselves as being the villain. So instead of saying, I don't want this relationship, they slowly sabotage it. So instead of saying, I'm interested in someone else, they become distant. Instead of being direct, they become evasive. And instead of being honest, they become confusion. And then when everything falls apart, they can tell themselves that they didn't technically lie. But this is the thing. When you're withholding important information, it's still deception. Silence can even be deceiving. Avoidance can deceive. Mixed signals is still deceiving. So giving someone just enough to stay while withholding what they deserve, because you know that you're not ready to tell the truth because it could be incredibly damaging, they lie. And I think that many people watching this understand exactly what I'm talking about right now. Because you can't tell me somewhere, somehow, you haven't had somebody in your face just playing games and straight up lying. And I feel like you were never asking for perfection. You were never asking for a fairy tale. You were only asking for honesty. That's it. Something that's free. Honesty. That's all. And that's not much to ask of anyone. I also want to say something that may help somebody today. Sometimes the reason people lie has nothing to do with your worth. Let me say it again, because I don't want you to ever blame yourself why somebody lies. Sometimes the reason that people lie has absolutely nothing to do with your worth. Sometimes the reason people lie has absolutely nothing to do with you at all. People often personalize deception too. They think, maybe if I were prettier, maybe if I was more successful, or maybe if I were just a little more understanding, if I had maybe just done something a little differently, they'd still be here, or everything would be okay. Listen, no. Don't blame yourself for somebody else's lying, okay? No. A dishonest person can lie to a wonderful person. A dishonest person can lie to someone who loved them completely. A dishonest person can lie to someone who gave them everything. They're just damn dishonest. And dishonesty begins within the person telling the lie collective, not within the person receiving it. And that's important to always remember. Because when people are hurt, they often start questioning themselves. They start putting themselves on trial, right? Meanwhile, the person who created the confusion isn't questioning themselves nearly as much, or even at all. They don't carry responsibility that doesn't belong to them. Now here's something else I want you to think about too. How many people sit out here and say they want closure? How many? Maybe even you collect them. Maybe you say, I just want closure. But I think that what you really want is an explanation. You just want the lie to make sense. You just want to understand why someone would look you in your eye and make promises that they know they couldn't keep. But here's what I've learned. And it took me a while, but I learned it. Not every explanation heals. Sometimes you get the answer and it still hurts. Sometimes the answer is more disappointing than the lie. Sometimes the answer is simply the person wasn't emotionally mature enough to be honest with you. Sometimes the answer is that they wanted what they wanted when they wanted it. And sometimes the answer is that they thought they could have both. And sometimes the answer is they never thought they'd get caught. And those answers aren't satisfying, but they happen. And that's why healing often begins when we stop searching for the perfect explanation. Stop looking for closure. You don't need someone to give you closure. And you holding space waiting for them to come back and give you some type of closure that really you can give yourself just by forgiving and moving on. You're still allowing them to have control and hold space and hold your energy. They're interfering in your peace. And the truth is, there may never be an explanation. Sometimes closure arises when you just stop asking why they did it and you start asking why you're still carrying it. Because that's where the power returns. Not understanding every detail about them, but understanding what you need moving forward. Because the lesson isn't just about identifying the liars. And trust me, we all can go through our families, our friends, our relationships. We can identify some liars. Hell, our parents, our kids, our siblings. It's about learning to just trust yourself. Trusting what you see. trusting what you feel, trusting what just doesn't add up or make sense to you. Trust the moments when words and actions don't match, okay? Because actions have a way of revealing what words attempt to hide. And eventually, just know the truth will surface. It always has a way of surfacing. And it might not be immediate, and it may not be tomorrow or next week, and it might not even reveal itself in a very dramatic way. But the truth has a funny habit of refusing to stay buried forever, that's for sure. What's done in the dark will always come to light. And when it does, collective, when it comes out, many people, not just you, will realize something. The truth wasn't their enemy. The lie was. The truth would have hurt, yes, but the lie delayed the hurt and it multiplied it. And that's a very different thing. So if you've been asking yourself, because you're coming out of something, or you're still trying to heal from something, or you're just simply trying to understand something, if you're saying, why lie? I don't care if you've called somebody, if you text somebody and they never responded, because most of the times they don't. They just leave you waiting, leave you in silence, thinking eventually you'll just forget about it and they can ease back in and sweep it under the rug. I want you to know something. That answer may never fully satisfy you. But don't let that question keep you stuck, collective. Do not do it. Don't let someone's dishonesty become a prison sentence for your future. And don't let their confusion become your identity. Don't let their deception convince you that everyone is the same. Because there are honest people in this world. I'm one of them. There are people who communicate very clearly. I'm one of them too. There are people who mean what they say. Check. I'm one of them too. There are people whose actions and words walk side by side. Check, 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 check. I'm one of those too. And most importantly, collective, there is a version of you waiting on the other side of this hurt. It is. It's a version of you that trusts yourself more. A version of you that recognizes red flags sooner. A version of you that will no longer settle for confusion. And I know that deep down inside, you know that there is a version of you that understands that peace is worth protecting. Because at the end of the day, the real question isn't why they lied. The real question is, what will you do with the truth now that you have it? Will you stay stuck in the story? Or will you use the truth as a doorway into your better chapter? I hope you choose the better chapter, collective. I really do. Thank you for spending this time with me outside our office hours, okay? Think about what I said. Stop asking yourself. Stop waiting. Stop giving up your control. Stop letting someone hold on to your energy. And just as a little side note, too, I want to ask you this. What truth really could someone who you no longer trust, no longer feel safe around, no longer feel like you could truly have the relationship go back to what it once was, or even a better version of this relationship? What truth could they tell you that would be acceptable for you to say, oh, okay, well now I understand why you lied? If you answer that and you say, there is none, my collective, I just gave you an answer. Remember, this space is not just mine, it's ours. And you're never meant to walk this alone, and it's telling you won't. So, together we stand, together we rise. Until we see each other again, collective. Enjoy your day. Bye.